Hi, Elenia here from the Silver Screen Show at LB24 TV. I've just come out of the Curzon in Mayfair. Just seen a pre-showing of Victoria and Abdul, and we also had a bit of a Q&A with the director Stephen Frears. So a little bit of a background. This is based on a book by Sharabani Basu about the relationship between Queen Victoria and a Muslim from India called Abdul Karim. And we are introduced at the beginning of the film with the line, based on true events, mostly, which set the tone for the rest of the film. You know, it's based on journals and things, so it's based on real people, but obviously there's some fabrication here and there. We have the screenplay by Lee Hall, and we have the wonderful Judi Dench as Queen Victoria, and Ali Fazal, who you might know from Furious 7, playing Abdul. We also have Eddie Izzard as Prince Bertie, or Albert VII, and Michael Gambon as well as the Prime Minister at the time. We've got a absolutely stunning cast who have played this fantastically. So there are two Indians who come over and are there to present the Mahor, a Mughal coin, to the Queen. And at first she's very disinterested, and everyone seems very uncomfortable at the fact that they're even there. There's been a bit of a revolt in India, and they seem pretty innocuous, and everyone thinks they'll just be there, present the coin and leave. But the Queen takes an interest in Abdul, and a relationship starts to blossom, and everyone in the court is very unhappy about this relationship. But Queen Victoria, being the provocative person, monarch, and long-standing sovereign, doesn't really care, and she just goes with it anyway. And the whole film is very funny, quite silly, but also very emotional, very serious, delves into the racial stereotypes and the ignorance of the time, even of these times too, and also into the emotional state of the Queen and how the sovereignty is taking quite a toll on her, as she is in her early 80s at the time. So we have the director Stephen Frears, who also did The Queen, which is about Queen Elizabeth II with Helen Mirren. He also did films like Philomena and Florence Foster Jenkins. Judi Dench has actually played Queen Victoria before in the film Mrs. Brown. You might also know her as M from the James Bond films and in the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. During the Q&A, we got to ask the director Stephen quite a few questions, and he gave us a bit of an insight into the filming of this production. This was actually the first production that has been allowed to film in Osborne House, which is a former royal residence in the Isle of Wight, which is quite cool. Eddie Izzard was playing the prince, as I said, and we see him a lot in quite funny roles, quite satirical roles, and this was quite serious. And he's obviously one of the people in the court who hates Abdul and wants him to leave, and he's trying to manipulate his own mother in order to get her to send Abdul away. So you hate him, but also there's that strange relationship between him and his mother, so you actually sympathize for him a little bit at a certain point in the film. And she learns Urdu from Abdul, and she teaches him English according to the journals that were found by him. And she knew, obviously, she was provoking the court. She just didn't really care about that. We found out that it only took 10 weeks to film this whole film, this 2 hours, which is incredible. And even Stephen Frears was saying, you know, I don't like to waste time. And he saw one film that was filmed in 100 days and said, I could have done that in half the time. So clearly doesn't like to waste any time at all during filming. And so yeah, Judi has in fact played Queen Victoria before. She came to a reading of the script, and they weren't sure whether she'd want to do it again 20 years on, but she came to the reading and she loved it, and she in fact agreed to do it again, and we are very lucky with the fact that she decided to come and do it again. I managed to get a question in myself. I asked whether during the times that we're in at the moment and all of the hatred and ignorance sent towards Muslims and Islam, were any of the actors uncomfortable? Were there any discussions that were raised during the filming, and were they embarrassed, or did they want to reel some of it back? And In fact, Stephen said that they were all quite liberal in the way they think. So, you know, they're not very uncomfortable about the subject matter, which I think makes for an even better film, because if they're comfortable in what they're doing, then it makes the acting better, it makes the film much better. Another question that was asked was whether he enjoys working with women, as quite a few of his films recently have been based around quite strong females and actually an older generation as well. We're looking at Judi Dench, has been in a couple of his films, and also Helen Mirren and Meryl Streep. And he says that his focus changes. You know, sometimes he gets bored and he wants to do something else. And he enjoys being quite provocative. He said in the 80s he was doing things about immigrants and homosexuals and women, all kind of poking at Margaret Thatcher at the time. And, you know, at the moment he's been focusing on women, and he says he might actually join another film about homosexuality. So he's a very interesting man. He was very blunt and very short with his questions. He was very to the point, and a very, very interesting man to listen to. So if we just have a look at the poster for a second, we're going to have a look at the other reviews that have come out. Enchanting, funny, utterly delightful. Judi Dench and Ali Fazal light up the screen, and powerful, charming, and genuinely moving. I think I'd agree with that. I think that you should go and see it. It comes out on Friday the 15th of September. Definitely check it out, and we will have some reviews for you on our regular show and on the blog. Have a good night.